Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. I guess to get started, I think it'd be good to just, for people watching to get to understand a bit of your journey, what that looked like and and how you sort of came about getting now into a leadership position.
So I don't think anybody ever wakes up and goes, right, I want to get into logistics. I think we all kind of fall into it. So how it came about was I was at university and I did an advertising and marketing degree. And like all graduates do, you start rushing to the job boards. What's going on? What can I get into? And to be honest, I always thought I'd go for like a marketing role. That's what my degree was geared to.
Got you.
But I ended up applying for a position at UPS, and at the time they called it UPS Sales Academy, and it was a brand new thing that they were doing where you had about 6 months worth of training in an inside sales, telephone sales sort of role, and you signed a contract which said at the end of your sort of graduation period, whatever roles are available within the field, whether that's Scotland or Cornwall, you'll relocate and we'll pay for that relocation. So I think for me at the time, being about 21, that was a really exciting prospect. I was like, right, I could be anywhere. I was thinking, London, wherever. So I came to the end of that and I ended up getting the Liverpool territory, which is what pushed me over to the northwest because I'm actually from like Yorkshire, Lincolnshire sort of border. Yeah.
The Liverpool twang is
everyone says to me I've got a massive mix of different accents, but so that pushed me over to Liverpool. But the one thing I can say about UPS is the groundwork that gave me for logistics was just invaluable. I think if I'd have followed their traditional model of just having 3 weeks training and being pushed out into the field, I think I'd have failed miserably. So I did that for a couple of years, and what I was finding was I was getting most excited when I was speaking to like e-commerce customers. But at the time, UPS were very much geared towards the B2B market, which I think they still very much are, but there is also like that e-commerce understanding around UPS now. And so I looked at it and I thought, do you know what? I want to get more into the e-com B2C side of it. I want to go and speak to these up and coming retailers. And that's where I decided to go over to DHL Express.
Got you.
They were very much express led, but they had like this huge understanding of e-commerce, and it just started to spark all these ideas for me, and I was super excited about it. And that was great. The problem I then had was I was going into customers where express wasn't necessarily a good fit.
Got you.
So I was like, I'm having to walk away from so much business because we just simply don't have the product to be able to sell to them. Because at the time, DHL Express were pure express.
Yes.
There was no e-com division. They'd not invested in DHL Parcel. They didn't necessarily want that UK volume unless it came with export volume.
Yeah.
So I thought, how do I diversify and get into something a little bit different where I can go after all means of somebody's business? And that's how I ended up in the reseller world and the parcel aggregator world. And I've loved it ever since.
Yeah.
So I've been able to go and, educate customers on how multi-carrier solutions can fit their business and help them to understand why certain carriers only fit certain sort of modes of product and things like that. And I've loved it. That's how I've ended up over this side.
Amazing. Yeah. And I guess some people experienced it early in the career and stuff. They always have that like one story or like almost like light bulb moment or I don't know, just something that indicated like I'm going to be a great salesperson in this industry. Like when you were at UPS in your early years, did you ever like just stumble over a big brand or like an account or?
I did. Yeah. It was a funny story actually, and I ended up going to work for them in between UPS and DHL. Oh, right. So it was a brand at the time called Miss Pap. I think they're still about, albeit I think they've changed owners. So it was a brand in Liverpool, and I remember going in to sit down with the owner, and we just had this great conversation about all the different things that we could do. At the time, UPS has started to come up with a brand new product for getting volume into the US, but on a much more like economical solution.
Yeah.
So I was super excited speaking to them about it, and it just ignited this fire in me where I was like, this is where I need to be. And it got to a point where he called me and he said, I'm launching a beauty brand. And I was a woman in my early 20s, beauty brand, eyes lit up. And he says, do you want to come and work for it? Do you want to come and head it up and take it through all of the phases from marketing all the way through to the logistics side of it? And I was like, I would absolutely love to. I lasted 3 weeks before I decided I don't like being on this side. I like being on the other side.
Bit ugly than maybe you thought.
Yeah, at the time I thought it's where I wanted to be. But I think I wanted to go back onto the other side because I enjoy the excitement of working with so many different people and helping so many different brands. So yeah, I lasted about 3 weeks and off I went. But I would say that ignited that fire within me to go on.
Almost reinforces, actually. I prefer logistics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, I felt similar, you know, because I did a similar thing. Whereas I was recruitment, I did flash in the pan 6 months at P2P before they got bought by FedEx.
Yeah.
But that, I remember, it's like, you know, you're not speaking to all the logistics companies, and almost your network is, you know, a little bit, you feel like you've lost a bit of network almost, but I totally get it. And I guess before we go into what you're doing now, if you were going to go back, do you think you did it the right way? Start with a big, you know, corporate in the industry, then go into more of like the reseller, entrepreneurial side of it? Or do you think, had you gone back now, you'd have started as, you know, working under the
No, I
reseller
wouldn't
model?
have changed a thing. I think for me, just going back to the training element, the big corporates have got such a huge budget behind training.
Yeah.
They've got departments that are specifically there to support you and all the training decks. I mean, at UPS, I had 6 months worth of training, but we had like what you call a 3-week onboarding period where you go to a hotel and you just sat there day in, day out, you know, digesting all of this information. As much as I love the parcel aggregator side of things, I think the reason I found success is because of the knowledge I've been able to take from training from Big Corp.
Got you. Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't flip it on its head and do it any differently. And it's kind of what I look for when we come into like a recruitment side of things, is I look for people that have got that corporate background but are perhaps looking for something that's a little bit more flexible around the needs, a little bit less corporate.
Yeah.
But I know that if someone's come from the likes of DHL, UPS, FedEx, DPD, those kinds of places, I know that they've got a really good foundation.
Good pedigree. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, interesting. And I guess, go on, what is it you're now doing? Where's Hannah Port up to now?
Where am I now? So I'd been in touch with John Gibbs, our MD, over at Warrant Group. And Warrant Group is, historically, it's your typical freight forwarder. So we've been going for over 40 years. The focus is very much on freight, and they've done such a good job at it. The USP is very much, we're very human centric, and I loved that. It was one of the things that sold it to me, is that the relationships we hold with customers are just so human. I can't explain it any other way. It's not chatbots and it's picking up the phone, and how's Richard and the kids. It's that kind of vibe. And I'd been speaking with John, and he said, look, I've been brought into the business. We want to grow exponentially. And it's been suggested that I should look into some sort of parcel division. And he said, I've had your name sort of sent my way. And I was super excited. So, you know, we met up, we had a couple of coffees, a spot of lunch, and we'd just gone through like the strategy behind it and what that would look like. And eventually we just said, should we just do it? And we both just looked at each other and went, let's just do it. Yeah. And from there, I've built a product out that's a multi-carrier product. Yeah. So, look, we're not reinventing the wheel with delivery. What I think we're trying to achieve is doing delivery right.
Yeah.
So we're a multi-carrier platform. So we've got tried and tested technology in the background that integrates into customers, you know, warehouse management systems, order management systems, order flows, that kind of thing. And then we have multiple different carriers that we work with, and we position those carriers to our customers in a way that we see fit and the customer's happy with. Mm-hmm. So you'll probably have done this yourself. You've got onto a website, you've researched the product, and you've gone, right, this is the one. I've spent hours. You've got to check out, and you know, one of a couple of things can happen. Even delivery is far too high, versus the product price, and you think there's absolutely no way I'm paying £12 for delivery, or they use a carrier that you've had a really negative experience with and you go, absolutely never.
Yeah.
What's happened is that retailers put so much time, energy, and probably cost into acquiring you as a new customer, even getting you through to checkout, and they've lost you because of delivery.
Yeah.
So I think what we're trying to achieve here at Warrant is that education piece.
Yeah.
Is, do you know what your customers want in terms of delivery? You might know what she wants to wear on a night out on Saturday, but do you know that she wants it to a locker, or she wants it to a neighbour but not number 7 because she doesn't get on with number 7? Like, they're a nightmare, that kind of thing. And you know, we're trying to stitch together a delivery process and options that mean that they can capture that customer at checkout and not lose them because of something as silly as delivery.
Got ya.
So I'm there heading that up at the moment, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's like, you know, you probably see me post about it on LinkedIn and whatnot, but it's like my baby. So outside of my children, this is, you know, my next little baby. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I've got a boss who's given me the creative freedom and just that total trust of my knowledge and my experience within the industry to go out and build this product. And quite often he'll say to me, look, I'm here to learn from you. And I say the same to him, you know, over on the freight side of things. But it's a really nice working relationship, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Mega. And I guess, like, you've gone through that journey then to where you're now in sort of leadership. And something I've come to realize is that the industry is really incestuous. Everybody works with everybody. Everyone wants a slice of everyone's network and stuff to build. How have you sort of found going from, like, you know, out and out sales probably more into strategic partnerships?
So I started that journey at Noatum. So I did that for nearly 4 years. So at the beginning of my Noatum journey, there was a product there on the parcel side, but it very much needed refining.
Yeah.
So I brought in my experience and my knowledge from, you know, the carrier industry and the contacts that I had. And a lot of what I was doing initially was building out those carrier relationships. And I love doing it because it's just two totally different experiences. And one of the things I really, really enjoy about that strategic partnership element is when I'm speaking to carriers, we're on a level.
Yeah.
So they understand what our requirements are and I understand what their needs are. So one of the things I quite often find is when they're like quoting us or they're doing some business with us, they go, you just give us everything we need up front. And I said, yeah, because I know what it is that you need, because I was in your position, you know, 3 or 4 years ago. But then you've got the opposite side where you're speaking to a customer and you have all these like light bulb moments and you see the customer go, oh, I didn't realize that's what we needed. So there's such a difference in those two communications, but I love them both equally.
Yeah.
Albeit it can be stressful because you're managing a lot by yourself, but at some point that team will be built out and, you know, we'll have the right people in place. So anyone from FedEx or DHL listed.
Yeah. Tap me up.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. And this is more just a me thing. Like I hear about it a lot, but I actually don't know what the mechanics look like. You know, if you were to say, we're now partnered with DPD and we can, you know, we can inject through their network.
Yeah.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when you see them deals or them partnerships get agreed. Is it as simple as that? I.e., you know, here's the amount of business we think we can bring you as a projection, and then as long as they're happy with the sale side, go ahead. You know, and is it as simple as that?
I think, in all honesty, it's one of two things. It's one, carrier dependent, and it's two, contact dependent, and it depends on who you're talking to. So if you've got like an existing relationship there with a contact at a particular carrier, I think there's more of a want to help.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you know, we're finding success, is because I know people within the industry, having been here for, I don't want to say a decade, but a decade makes me feel old. But yeah, I mean, the negotiations are relatively straightforward, I would say, because I think there is that understanding that they're kind of getting like a free sales team, as it were. The difficulty is, and I'm pretty open about this, is our suppliers are also our competitors.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the relationship element of it, you have to be super close with your contacts within your carriers, because at some point there is going to be some crossover somewhere. However, because I am in control of what customers we're able to onboard over at Warrant, I do make a massively conscious effort to not, like, I would never go out to a DPD customer and go, come over with us. Like, it's just not worth doing, because it's going to jeopardize the relationship that I've got with DPD. And at the end of the day, we're not much without our carriers. So I really do value those relationships, and there's got to be a lot of mutual respect. Obviously, we're not in the game of, anti-competitiveness. So there's no signed contracts that say you can't do this and we can't do that. But I think there's just like that underlying agreement between two parties that, look, let's respect one another.
I hear you. And if you ever, it might not have been yourself because you seem quite switched on to it, but like, I'm sure there's probably been some desperate salespeople that the account might have been dealing with DPD and they may have been desperate for the business. But have you ever been a part of it where somebody takes on that business away from the carrier and that has completely jeopardized the relationship and they've switched the solution? Or is it more, first warning, second warning, third warning?
I haven't, and I'm not saying there's never been instances, because we might, as a reseller or a parcel aggregator, you might take from DPD, but you might be giving it to DX on your account. So I would say that because of the benefits of managing a parcel aggregator account from a carrier perspective, is where we lose, we're still going to win. So we're not just like one account where you're praying that they're going to have a good year of a 10% uplift, like a retailer, for example. We're constantly growing, but in line with that, there are always going to be losses, but there are always going to be wins.
Yeah.
So I've never had it jeopardize a relationship. But I think that's testament, again, to that mutual understanding that we have between carrier and ourselves, that, these things can happen. And at some point will happen. I'm not afraid to shy away from that. These are just the conversations that you've got to have in the background.
Yeah. And that's it. It's interesting to know whether, like, if I was to set up not saying that I'm going to, but if I was to set up a logistics company tomorrow, like, and I knocked on a DPD's door, would they welcome my business if I was to suggest I had business coming, kind of thing? Or whether there's a threshold or there's a certain standard you have to hit to
there
be
are
able
some
to get it
carriers so when I worked at DHL, they had a specific reseller department, as it were, and it was headed up by a lady at the time called Georgie Robinson. I'm not sure if she's still there, but she headed up the reseller category.
Yeah.
And I actually had quite a few resellers in my portfolio, and DHL was super open to that as a business model.
Yeah.
I remember being at Noatum where DHL did this massive U-turn and they upped our rates by 65% because they didn't want to work with resellers any longer. They felt that they could offer more value by obviously getting the business direct, which, is totally fair enough. There is still, I would say, more carriers that are open to it than aren't. There's only the select few that approach with caution, I would say. Got ya.
No, interesting. Well, I think looking at the facts where, you've been all things e-com, you're heading up e-solutions at Warrant Group, who's the current sweet spot, for the type of customer profile? Like, what would you say these guys are really who we want to be working with?
Yeah. So I don't like looking at it from like a volume or a revenue point of view. I like looking at it from an objective perspective. If there's a retailer or a business that their objective is to offer the best customer experience to their their shoppers, but they want to have a multi-carrier strategy without the multi-carrier headache of managing. So you can imagine you work with 4 different carriers. That's 4 different hourly meetings a month. That's 4 different invoices. That's 4 different sets of customer services and sets of rules that you've got to abide by. And it's super difficult to manage. Not only that, you're splitting your buying power 4 ways.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at it from you must send X amount of parcels and spend X amount with us and that's our sweet spot, it's more looking at it from a point of view. If your objective is to give the best customer experience, not lose customers at checkout because of lack of options, and you want to simplify and you want to flex it with scale, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's the approach that I like to take, as opposed to really putting it into one
Some sort of
square box
segmentation type thing. Interesting. So, i.e., like, you could take SME, you could take mid-market, you could take your larger business and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think because of our consolidated buying power, larger retailers would be surprised at the rate that we're able to achieve, because I know one of the things that, you know, larger retailers consider, and, you know, in a lot of cases it can be true, is that they have enough buying power direct to go and achieve the best rate, which is fine. But I think when we start looking at delivery now, cheapest isn't always the best. It's more about what are the knock-on effects of working with just one provider or just working with the cheapest provider. And those knock-on effects can be losses, they can be loss of consumer confidence, it can be loss of sale because the customer's not confident in your offering. I think one of the things I'm trying to get through to retailers and any businesses that might be listening is treat delivery as an extended product offering. Don't just see it as a bolt-on to the end. So you've spent hours, days, years, you know, developing your product, making sure it's ready to go to market, making sure that it's what your customers want, but then you're letting them down at the final mile. But if you treated delivery like you treated your product, then all of a sudden your customers are gonna trust you, they're gonna start buying from you. What might work for one customer doesn't work for another. So if you take like Nike as an example, they don't just sell one pair of trainers in one size and one color because they know that's not going to fit everybody. They'd have a failing business if that's, you know, the route that they decided to take. You've got to look at delivery in those sorts of terms in order to be successful, and make delivery a cost driver for the a profit driver for the business, rather than like a cost center that's just piling up.
Got you. And I guess then, has it ever been a case where, you know, the reseller multi-carrier option doesn't work for a retailer, or a, you know, and if so, why?
It's a good question. I think, look, our model's not going to fit everybody. And I think, again, it can go back to this being sort of like contact dependent. There is some, you know, operations managers and such within businesses that do prefer to hold those relationships direct because they feel like it gives them more control.
Got you. Yeah.
What it doesn't do is avoid risk. So you can go and have your direct relationship with your carrier, but let's say that carrier's systems go down, or let's say, you know, they go on a strike, which is happening more and more now. What you can't do overnight is set up a brand new carrier account with their competitor to keep volume moving.
Got you.
What you can do with us is we can divert your volume to another carrier to keep things moving. So I think, look, it's not going to be for everybody, and that's absolutely fine. But I love just having conversations with people and understanding why it's not for them. And I think a lot of it is around control. And a lot of it is around feeling like there's an extra layer added into communication.
Well, the thing that got me is I was speaking to someone who worked for a carrier, and I was talking to him about joining a reseller.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm sure the pricing can almost be more competitive than if you worked directly for the carrier. His mind was like, how does that even work? You know, I work for the brand, I work for the company, surely I must offer the most competitive. Like, why do carriers get multi-carriers, why do they get slightly more preferential rates as a sales?
It's a really good point, and it actually takes me back to my days at DHL, where that was a massive frustration of mine, especially managing so many resellers within my portfolio. It goes back to, I think, bureaucracy. So when I was at big corps, you you sit in like a funnel of where you are. So at the time I was like field sales executive. So we could get slightly better rates than inside sales executives because we were working with accounts. I think at the time it was around about up to 300,000 parcels. Above us, you had then your national account executives that were dealing with 300,000 plus. Then from there, you'd have enterprise, which were dealing with customers that had premises in multiple different countries. So, you know, UK, America, Spain, that kind of thing. And there is very much a rule. So you can't ask for rates that sit outside of your jurisdiction, basically. And that just was what it was. And you kind of got used to that, and it made it so that you were more direct in your approach. You knew who you could get rates for and who you couldn't. The differences with being a reseller is year one, you might do £1 million. Year two, you might do 3 million because you're constantly growing.
Yeah.
We're a sales force, as it were, ourselves. So I think the reason we're able to get better rates is because we're consolidating volume. And whereas when you're working direct for a carrier and you're asking for rates, they're just looking at it on a one account basis.
Got you.
Whereas when they're looking at resellers, don't get me wrong, they're factoring in risk and whatnot, but they're also looking at it from a growth perspective. And the more growth you've got, the more profitable you are as an account.
Yeah.
So they'll look at your sort of like historic volumes and your spend and your trends and that kind of thing. But I remember that being a huge frustration for me when I worked for a carrier direct, because you sort of thought, oh God, I work for the company. How on earth am I not able to be a reseller?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I had to get that in there for the non-believers, because I speak to loads of people in the industry, and it's like almost resellers can sometimes be pictured as like, you know, it's not as advantageous or whatever to work for a reseller or whatever. But yeah, I've seen almost the opposite. You know, and then it's just more about culture, isn't it, and people?
I think it is, yeah. So for me, it's culture, flexibility, the lack of that red tape as well. Yeah. So I'm so proud of how flexible and agile that we're able to be. So we can go to a customer and they can say, can you do something slightly bespoke for us? And, you know, one of the larger carriers, it's either a hard and fast no, or it's a... we'll get back to you in 6 weeks once it's been through 8 different layers of approvals.
Yeah.
I can take that conversation away. I can call my manager, John, and he can go, yeah, fine. And within minutes, it's something that's been approved and solved, and we can go and get it done. So we're super flexible, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think business needs that. Business needs flexibility. Our customers need flexibility.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I love it over on the reseller side.
And I guess you know, you've worked your way up into leadership now. Has there been any, like, looking back over your shoulder, any moments where, you know, more just through humility, you could say, I made a complete blunder here. This was the this was like the account, and you know, and now clearly that doesn't happen.
Oh.
Put you on the spot, because I know you definitely weren't
I know,
expecting
I'm gonna,
that
I
question.
feel like I'm in an interview where it's like, what's your weakness? It's a good question. Yes, I do. We had an account at a reseller that were doing a ridiculous amount into Europe.
Yeah.
What had gone through on a rate card had been zeroed off on like customs fees, as it were.
Right.
And their first invoice came through and it was not zero custom fees. And there was a lot of back and forth with that customer. And it was a lesson well learned. It's a lesson in, even though operations and pricing have sent you something over, don't take it as gospel truth. Like, you cast your eye over it, make sure it's rock solid. And I think for me at that point, I was very early into the reseller stage of my career.
Yeah.
I was so used to corporate, whereby everything had gone through layers of approval. And by the time it hit my inbox, I knew that was cast iron.
Got ya.
That with a reseller, it's not really like that. And because you're working with so many different carriers and providers, it really does land with me as my responsibility to make sure that I understand those carriers T's and C's inside out.
Due diligence is
Yeah,
on you almost.
100%.
Yeah.
So that was a hard lesson learned.
Are you allowed to name drop who the client is?
No, I won't do, just because hopefully one day I might win them back. But I won't name drop them. But it was early into, I'd say it was a good 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. And were they a fashion company? Were they?
No, they were an importer of home goods. So
okay.
it wasn't, and it wasn't even like an e-commerce business.
Yeah.
They went out to wholesalers and distributors, but they were huge in what they did. They were a massive account. And I was gutted that such a simple mistake had kind of broken down that trust, as it were. And it was such a good reminder of how easily things can come unstitched if you don't have your eye on the ball all the time.
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
and have you have you come across any, I guess, markets or segments in the market? Because like, let's say beauty and cosmetics, like that's been the real boom sort of like segment for the last 5, 6, maybe going on 10 now, but years. Has there been any like new entrants to be like, these guys are actually like a bit of a hidden gem in terms of type of business? Or
Amazon sellers are huge.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily selling one product. They're selling what they know is going to sell, if that makes sense. So you can't put them into one sort of square box and say, well, they just sell clothes.
Got ya.
They sell whatever sells.
Yeah.
So they're constantly looking at top trending products. It could be like a drain for a plug hole, or it could be that they're selling thermal pants for winter, that kind of thing. That's quite big. And I'm also seeing a lot of uptake in the dropshipping sort of industry as well.
Yeah.
Whereby obviously things are being sent from, whether that be China or whatnot, and dropshipping from China. So we work closely with, we've got like some great Chinese contacts whereby we've got some amazing rates to dropship from China, and really, really competitive. So yeah, we're starting to see a lot of that as well.
And how much is what you're doing domestic and international at the minute, would you say?
I'd say that it's very much a mix. I think a lot of people have been scared off by international. There's a lot that's been going on. So obviously mid this year is when the duty-free threshold comes down for Europe and IOSS.
Yeah.
So you've got this flat €3 charge that's coming in for all goods under €150. You've then got Trump's tariffs, which are a minefield, and it's always interesting to see how that chops and changes. I'd say day by day, but sometimes it literally is hour by hour. So I would say that a lot of retailers are more comfortable in the UK domestic space at the moment than they are internationally. But what I would say about that is where they feel like they lack knowledge, I'm happy to talk to anybody, even if there's nothing in it for us and they're not looking to, have that conversation yet where they want to even use us for a carrier relationship. I'm so passionate about the subject that anybody can, tap me up on LinkedIn, my email, my phone number's on there and whatnot, and just have the conversation, because knowledge is truly power when it comes to international shipping. So yeah, it's a mix, but I'd say retailers are a lot more comfortable in the domestic space. Yeah.
Got you. I feel like recently, and it's what I've seen, is just a lot of more salespeople in the industry, I think, are finding, UK domestic easier. Yeah, international's a bit more difficult with all the global affairs and stuff going on. But yeah, the volumes are, I'd say, more going towards like domestic, slightly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for alternatives from shipping from the UK internationally. So we are seeing a lot of shipping direct from factory to a supplier or to a partner that they might have situated within the Netherlands to then distribute out towards, EU customers, and setting up EU entities and things like that. Another option we're seeing for international shipments going into Europe is this cross-border piece whereby everything is consolidated and sort of palletized and sent through as one shipment.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they're selling it to their EU entity, so they can clear the goods at cost as opposed to clearing them at sales value. So you're never ever going to get away from, having to pay duty and VAT. Unfortunately, we're just not living in that world anymore where everything's sort of in free circulation. But there are ways around it if you speak to the right people.
Yeah.
So, we can always look to bring costs down. But
and not to make this big political show, but like, if you were to go back and say, actually, let's, UK remain in Europe, would you prefer that? Would that be easier?
It'd be much easier for us from a logistical perspective. Yeah, 100%. I think it's one of those things you take for granted. And I think at the time, we didn't even really give it a second thought.
Yeah.
It was just something that was so embedded into you that you could send goods into your free circulation, and you could send goods to, the US with $800 de minimis, and everything went under that duty free. And if I could go back now and tell my younger self, I'd say, go out and smash the international market while you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, political views aside, just purely from a logistical perspective, it would have been so much easier to have remained.
I'd love to know the number of, whether international trade in Europe's gone up or down since.
I can imagine it's taken a nosedive.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it'd be interesting how drastic. But okay, cool. And then two areas that I know usually get brought in around service and prop and stuff is like return solution and 3PL. So like warehousing, because there's brands that will, I know from a delivery perspective, seems like you've got it locked off, but from like a 3PL or a returns, I know that usually is a thing.
Yeah. So from a 3PL perspective, we partner with a great 3PL over in Birmingham. So we've got that locked down should anybody need that. 3PLs is a difficult one. So at Noatum, when I worked there was a lot of work in like contract logistics and such. And to be fair, the warehouse was spot on. It was very high tech. It was great. I think for retailers considering a 3PL, they really do have to do the homework, because you'll see on LinkedIn, and it always kind of makes me laugh, and I can't say I've never been involved in it, but you'll see somebody come on LinkedIn and say, I'm just looking for some 3PL recommendations, and within 5 minutes, there's got to be 300 odd comments on there. Everyone's going, we can do it, we could do it, we could do it. You're just so inundated in this industry and it's so dense with competition that, I would always recommend getting a consultant on board, somebody who's a professional in their field, who can have those negotiation conversations and ask the right questions to make sure that a 3PL strategy is right for your brand. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. 3PLs are great for a hands-off approach. You do lose a bit of control.
Yeah.
But if you choose the right 3PL, then it can take your brand to new heights. I've seen it time and time again, because it gives you that time to give your time back to the business and strategize and things like that. And then what was the other piece? Returns. Returns. We need to stop looking at returns as a cost center.
Got ya.
We need to start looking at them like something that's going to provide your business with rich data. So, why are customers returning things? Is SKU number 1, 2, 3 too big a fit? Do we need to look at the sizing of it, or be more specific on the website in the details and the description to stop returns? Because realistically, nobody wants to return from a retailer perspective, because it's refunded revenue, right?
Yeah.
But we need to start looking at it as lost sales also. If you're not offering a convenient return solution, more often than not, people won't check out, because they think, well, if this doesn't go to plan because I'm blind buying online, how am I going to get it back to you? The shift that we've seen, I'd say probably over the last sort of 5 years, probably post-COVID, is consumers are now willing to pay for that returns piece. Whereas if you take it back 7-8 years, you'd drop dead before you paid for a return. It just wasn't out there in the atmosphere. Whereas now people are understanding that there is a cost attached to returns. There is a sustainable piece that's attached to returns, and CO2 emissions and that kind of thing. So
I guess looking then into retailers and their customer experience, what do you think matters for them now?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think delivery has now moved from that back office function that it was 10 years ago into being a customer experience function.
Yeah.
And I think the retailers that treat delivery like that are the ones that are successful and they're getting it right.
Yeah.
So retailers spend an ungodly amount of money on marketing, emails, social media, influencer campaigns, all of this kind of thing. But in actual fact, the most important communication they'll send out to their customers now is that delivery piece.
Yeah.
Your order's on its way, it's been dispatched, it's arriving at this time. And if retailers get that right and they brand it correctly, what they're doing is instilling customer loyalty because they're giving that customer confidence that they know their order's coming. So I would say that's how it's changing.
Yeah. And is there any customers or clients that you've worked with where you've gone in almost, let's call them a big brand, and then you've been surprised that it's not as touch base?
Yeah, I have.
I've
gone, look, I'm not going to go into out-in customers, but I'll give, I'll talk around it. There's a successful brand on TikTok.
Yeah.
And from the outside, they look huge. It's a women's wear sort of fitness brand.
Got ya.
And they're great. They get everything right. Their strategy from a marketing point of view is spot on. The quality of goods, I can tell a lot's gone into it. Behind the scenes, the delivery strategy is just not there at all.
Yeah.
They've kind of, don't want to say fumbled it because it's probably the incorrect term, but I think they've panicked is what I would say, in that they've just gone for a strategy. They think, oh well, I think that will work. And what's happened is uptake on things, it's like the US where you're trying to charge £35 to go over to the US.
Yeah.
And your goods are maybe worth $50 to the consumer. It's just not going to work for them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and that's where the education piece comes in, and that's why I love what I do. I love seeing the light bulb moment, and I also love going into businesses and learning about what they do. I always say to my customers, you know your audience inside out from a product perspective, a marketing perspective, but just let me sit down with you for 10 minutes and go through what they want from a delivery perspective. Like women, for example, aged between 25 to 45, and now seeing this shift towards how can my delivery fit around my life from how fast can I get delivery.
Yes.
They don't want to spend over £6 for next day delivery, and they don't want to spend any more than $3.99 for standard delivery, that kind of thing. So I can sit down with them and I can speak to them about this, because quite often what we see retailers doing is it's a race to the bottom in pricing when this comes to pricing their delivery. Well, our competitor's doing it like this, so we should do it like that. Actually, the biggest conversion rate and upsell you'll see is on delivery. So at checkout, you can say, oh, well, if you add this extra t-shirt in, you can get free delivery. There may be some uptake on that, but we can take you from standard delivery at $2.99. If you go to $4.99, we'll get it there next day with an hour window.
Yeah.
There's huge conversion on that. And if retailers are pricing it correctly, there's also profit in there for them as well. So we've all of a sudden taken that from a cost that drains the business to an additional revenue stream, which is great for the business, but great for the customer, because they've got an improved premium service. They've got a fully tracked service with an hour window or whatever it might be. And then in turn, the consequence of that is their customer services team is seeing less noise, less queries, that kind of thing. So
eases the back office.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And, that's the beauty of delivery. People just see it as, oh, well, if you're the cheapest and the most reliable, we'll go with you. And it's like, no, let me educate you on what more we can do.
And what about like in-store collection for retailers? Because I guess I know you've said about behaviours and that demographic of women, is that going up in-store delivery?
100%.
Right.
So lockers and store deliveries are huge now. And it's, something we didn't really see 10 years ago, particularly the locker side of things.
Yeah.
So for me, where I live, I'm up in the hills, and there are certain carriers where I can set my what 3 words and they'll find us. But there are some carriers that will just refuse to come up altogether.
Got it.
And that, for me as a consumer, can be super frustrating. I 9 times out of 10 will get my things now sent to Tesco Express or to the InPost locker at the petrol station about a mile away, because I know it's going to get delivered.
Yeah.
But there's also the secondary piece to that, and I don't know if this is since having kids, but the sustainable element of that as well, and feeling like you've made the right decision for the environment, because instead of having the driver come all the way up to little old me at my house, he's dropped off 20 parcels to one consolidated location. Yeah. So you've taken your CO2 down from about 300 grams for that parcel to my house to between 10 and 30 grams for having it dropped off at a locker. So there's a lot of different influencing factors that will drive a customer to use lockers or, shop sort of collections. And it can come from it working around their life they're not in.
Yeah.
And it can also be driven by this sustainability piece. But if the retailer's positioned it at checkout as being sustainable and they've done the right thing and made it slightly cheaper at checkout, that can also drive that decision as well.
I've been told the Scandinavian market's massive for poodle options.
Yeah, huge.
And I think China as well.
Yeah,
I think
France are also, they've always preferred that kind of method in terms of collecting your parcel.
I don't think I'm there yet,
Are you not?
No, I don't. There's something about going and picking it up like me doing the journey. I don't know. I don't think I've adopted there yet.
See, I work from home a lot, so I technically could have the parcel delivered to my house, but I just find the stress of it all sometimes a little bit too much. And I just think there's even times where I know I'm going to be on important work calls as well.
Yeah.
And for anybody who knows me or has been on a call with me, they'll have seen Uno, my dog, in the background. So if I get a knock on the door of a parcel and Uno starts going mad, I just think I don't need the headache. I'd rather just go pick it up. Yeah. So for me, that's an influencing factor, which is something that, retailers wouldn't consider as why you would add in a collection option. But there's so many different ways, and it just goes back to that piece of ensuring delivery fits around your customer's lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, it's blowing up, lockers, and all of that. From what I'm hearing, we've just partnered with a locker business, which is about to explode. So exciting. Well, I thought it'd be good to go into some almost like trivial sort of questions.
Yeah.
So short, sharp, fast, funny, furious, however you like. In terms of, I guess, sales career so far, what's been the biggest learning that you've had to become a really good salesperson?
Listen to your customer. Don't sell them what you have. Understand what they need.
Yeah.
I think in my early days, your training kicks in. We've got this product, we've got that product, we've got this service. I've got to hit X amount quota.
Yeah.
But actually it needs stripping all the way down, and you've got to sit there and you've got to really understand the crux of their business and what it is it requires. And I think sometimes walking away.
Yeah.
You're not always going to be the right fit, and don't force yourself to be the fit, because that's going to be detrimental to their business and have a negative impact. And that's not how I want to be known.
Yeah. Mega. And have you met any celebrities through the job?
Oh.
Through could be influencers, could be.
I've met the Princess of Greece.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I didn't realise at the time she was the Princess of Greece. So she's got a baby wear brand.
Yeah.
So I went down to their headquarters in London and met with her. She was lovely, and she was super passionate about the brand, and she was super.
Was she dressed ordinary, or was she dressed?
Yeah, no, she looked the part, but she wasn't in a prom dress.
Yeah.
You could tell that she had an air about her though.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I left and I spoke to my boss at the time. He said, "Do you know she's the Princess of Greece?" I said, "Joking." I should have sat up a bit straighter.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there are any other celebrities that I've met. No, I don't think there are. No.
I always just feel like it's one of them spaces, like you'll probably, you know, if someone's a brand ambassador or something of a brand, you might have like been been up against, you know, been and met them or something. Okay, and then in terms of like any funny moments in your career through mishap, through blunders, through pure coincidence, like has there been a time where you've
Yeah, there has. So I remember walking into a boardroom and there was maybe six men around the table, like super high stakes stuff, and I had a big presentation and I'd been really nervous about it and going in and proposing. And as I sat down and I started talking, you'll probably notice in this podcast I can be quite animated with my hands. And I caught my nail on the table and it flicked up into the air and hit one of the directors in the eye and landed in his lap. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I actually asked for it back because I didn't have a spare one to stick on at the time. So yeah, that was
that's amazing.
That was interesting.
Surprised you didn't tell him to keep it as a souvenir.
I know, I should have done. No, but luckily he was really understanding and saw the funny side of it.
Yeah.
I think it took me a little while to recover.
That's hilarious. No way. Mega. And then I guess if you were to do it all, let's say over again, what would you sort of tell yourself, 21-year-old, just out of university, Hannah Porter, getting into logistics, what would you sort of tell yourself?
Trust your instincts.
Yeah.
You clearly love e-com. I made a brief venture into freight in my previous role. Hated it. Sorry to all the freight people out there. It just wasn't my bag.
Yeah.
I think stick to what you love and it'll feel less like work.
Got you.
And I think that's what I'd give. But I think looking back at my career, I'm really happy with how I've done things and where I've come to. I've managed to get a lot of experience from a lot of different places and also learn from a lot of great people as well, which I'm super grateful for. I don't think you ever truly know everything. So you're constantly learning. And still now I make connections where, you know, we set up a phone call and I'm like, teach me what you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'd just tell her to continue to be the sponge that I am today. I just love knowledge.
Amazing.
So that's what I'd say to her.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming on.
Thanks very much.